All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to our live stream. Today we are talking about a pre-treatment and what's the best pre-treatment methods and best practices to get quality DTG prints. Thank you so much for joining this live webinar. I already see some people joining on Zoom, some people on YouTube, and on Facebook. We are broadcasting on all three different channels. So wherever you're joining us, you can communicate with us and participate in this live stream. We're very excited to host this webinar today because I think pre-treating is a huge part of having a quality DTG print. That's something we always emphasize here at Ricoh and at any of our trainings. So it is a topic that just like with digitizing as compared to embroidery, pre-treatment is probably an essential step in the DTG process to be able to have a quality print. So this is a topic that a lot of people have asked about, and we decided to partner with iGroup Technologies today to kind of bring you this information in a live webinar. Now, that being said, I did want to kind of have a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. For those of you that kind of don't know that here at Ricoh we sell the DTG printers, we do have the Ricoh RI1000 as well as the Ricoh RI2000 DTG printer packages that are available for purchase. As you can kind of see behind me, I do have the Ricoh RI1000 here. That's behind me, we have these two different packages to be able to get you started in the printing business. Some people kind of add on DTG printing when they have an embroidery machine, just to become a kind of a one-stop shop for their customers, or they start out with DTG printing and then kind of expand into embroidery and vice versa. So we kind of have seen both situations happen. So for those of you that kind of are joining us for the very first time in a live webinar like this and don't know that we sell DTG printers, now you know that we have these different packages that are available for you to purchase. Now, I'll kind of go over some specials and some promotions that we'll have that are specific to people that are attending this live webinar, and some special coupon codes that you can use on our shop at the end of this video. But I wanted to quickly kind of go over some of the packages that we offer here before we kind of jump into the main topic today, which is discussing and talking about what are the pre-treatment best practices to get best high quality prints on your DTG prints. So if we can kind of pull up some of the landing pages that we have to talk about the different DTG packages that we have. We do have DTG packages that will allow you to get everything you need to get started in that package. Not only the printer itself, but also we have 0% financing to help you with low monthly payments with these printers to help you get started. We also include a Ricoh heat press in there, so that you obviously in the process of DTG you would need to use a heat press to be able to print and cure the design or to cure your pre-treat, as we'll show in the demonstration today. We also have the pre-treatment liquid, obviously, basically everything you need, including the RIP software as well, to help you get started with direct-to-garment printing. And as I mentioned before, Ricoh RI1000 and the 2000 are both available in our packages here at Ricoh. All right. So with that said, I kind of wanted to, and if you guys have any questions in the meantime, or anytime throughout this presentation, we want it to be very interactive, right? So feel free to chime in any of the chat boxes down below. If you're on Zoom, you can type into the chat. We'll see the questions. We'll kind of field some questions there as we go. We're also live on Facebook and on YouTube, so we'll be fielding questions there as well as we go along. But now I wanted to kind of introduce iGroup Technologies. They're our partner for today for this live webinar. And for those of you that don't know what iGroup Technologies does, they're actually the makers of the Image Armor pre-treatment liquid that are packaged with all of our printers, as well as they produce the RTP pre-treated t-shirts that we also have a couple of samples of in each of our packages. So for those of you that don't know, obviously with different pre-treatment liquid, which iGroup Technologies will go over today, with different pre-treatment liquid using Image Armor, it's designed to kind of pre-treat on different types of shirts, whether it's dark polyester or white or light color garments. There's different pre-treatment liquid that are being used for different types of fabrics, as well as the RTP pre-treated shirts. If you don't want to go through the process of pre-treating the shirts and just want to have them done for you, they also have pre-treated T-shirts so that you can just pop them into the printer and start printing. So we have samples of those all in our packages, so you can check them out. And today, they're very grateful to have them on here, and we're excited to have them kind of share some of the best practices in the pre-treatment process to allow you guys to kind of make sure that you get a quality print each and every time. So with that said, I wanted to turn it over to Brian and Dean. Maybe Dean will pop in at sometime during the presentation as well, but they will kind of go over some of the pre-treatment practices, and feel free to chime in with any questions as we go along. And so Brian, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Henry, and welcome everybody to the Everything on Pre-Treatment. We get asked a lot of times, what is pre-treatment? And it is one of the most essential parts of direct-to-garment printing that will either make or break what you're trying to do. So that being said, basically, we have several different types of pre-treatments. We have our Image Armor Light Shirt formula, and we also have our Image Armor Ultra. The lights are generally used for your CMYK printing only on white and light colored shirts. The Ultra is used for anytime you're really doing white ink printing on pretty much any color garment for the most part, that to keep the basics simple. And I know we'll go through a lot of Q&As later on, but that's the basics with our two pre-treatments. I believe that with your startup kits, you do get you get a box with sample RTP shirts in it that are already pre-treated, as well as samples of the light and the ultra shirt formulas to get you up and going. Now, I believe, Henry can correct me later, but I believe if you go to today and you need pre-treatment, you can get the Image Armor products at shop.ricoma.com. And if you use the, I believe it's SAVE10, yes, SAVE10 code, you can receive 10% off your purchases today on any of the pre-treatment products there. So basically, we touched a little bit on RTP apparel, and what it is it was a brainchild from actually about 2014. We often joke internally here in our facility that pre-treating nobody likes to do, but it's a necessary evil as far as being able to do direct-to-garment printing. So what we did with RTP was we created really the first ready-to-print shirt, hence RTP, apparel that is completely pre-treated, and you can print anywhere on the shirt, front, back, sleeves, even a neck label if you want to, because we have a tearaway tag in it. And it just makes the process of direct-to-garment printing so much easier. Basically, you pull a shirt out, heat press it to remove any moisture, and then you can go straight to the printer. Now, getting more to the pre-treating side of it, if you choose to pre-treat your own products, and you're going to need to, one way, shape, or form, because there are so many different styles of shirts out there, weights and colors and everything, that you are going to need to pre-treat a shirt. Now, we'll start off with the basic, simple stuff, which is white shirts. You don't necessarily need to pre-treat the shirt, okay? You can actually go straight to your printer, load your artwork, and print full color graphic right onto, say, a white shirt, or even a black print on a red shirt, okay? However, when you do pre-treat, you can get a lot better results and more image clarity and better wash durability. Now, with the light shirt formula, I'm gonna grab a couple samples here, and we'll pull these up. I've got two different samples. This one here, if we switch cameras, is and it may be hard to tell on screen, but what we ended up doing was this side was not pre-treated and this side was pre-treated with our light shirt formula. So we applied the pre-treatment, which is a liquid that you spray onto the shirts and then heat set it so that when you print the ink onto the fabric, it allows a binding effect to interact with the ink and hold the ink more on the shirt. So when you pre-treat even a light colored garment, say like this white shirt, which is 100% cotton, you get brighter colors and more detailed images in the print itself. What typically ends up happening, and a lot of people don't realize this, and on cotton, it's not nearly as pronounced as, say, a 100% polyester shirt, which we'll show you here in a second. But you're printing millions and millions of little dots of ink all over the shirt. Now, when those hit, it's a water-based ink, so the inks what happens is you print a dot of ink and it grows in size. That's what they call dot gain. So what we do with pre-treatment is we allow that dot gain to be minimized, and it allows for sharper images and crisper images and more vivid colors in general on the shirt itself. We also can use the light shirt formula for doing a polyester shirt like this. Now, it may be a little bit difficult to see on the image or on the screen, but on the left side again, here, that is not pre-treated versus the right side. And hopefully you can sort of see the difference on the area here where it's a lot blurrier. And you have to remember that polyester fabric in and of itself wants to wick moisture away. That being said, we're working with water-based inks, and that water-based ink basically wants to spread when you print it onto a polyester shirt or 50-50. 100% cotton, it's not nearly as pronounced. So that being said, what the light shirt formula pre-treatments do is it increases your wash durability and also increases the retention of the dots as it's printed onto the shirt, allowing for sharper, crisper images. So in general, the light shirt formula is often used on white and really light colored shirts if you're printing only CMYK prints. So you're not printing it all with white ink. The dark shirt or the ultra is used pretty much anytime you're doing white ink printing, like this shirt here. And basically the pre-treating process is you're applying an amount of pre-treatment liquid onto the shirt. Now you can use a hand sprayer. General best practices are to use a machine to apply the pre-treatment. There are many reasons for this. Once you have a specific shirt, there is a proper amount of pre-treatment that needs to be applied. And we receive this question all the time, and I'm sure we'll probably cover it more in depth in the Q&A session. But a general rule of thumb that we use for applying pre-treatment is lighter colored shirts require less pre-treatment, whereas darker colored shirts require more. The main reason for that is the white ink that you're printing onto the garment has to hide more of the dark, say black of the shirt than a light gray or an athletic gray color shirt. The thicker or heavier weight the shirt generally will require more pre-treatment just because there's more fabric mass in the actual shirt itself. Now, if you use a higher quality shirt, say a nice ring spun cone 30 single shirt, a lot of times you can get away using less pre-treatment. And we get this question a lot. You might be using a lower quality shirt that costs a lot less, but it's going to require more pre-treatment on it to get a good surface so you can get a great looking white print base in your color CMYK, as versus a higher quality, say 30 single shirts, where you can apply less pre-treatment because the surface is actually going to be smoother. And in response to that, that means you can also typically utilize less ink because it's a higher quality, smoother shirt, whereas a rougher, lower quality, lower price shirt has more, they probably use a lower gauge fabric, which means there's more hills and valleys that technically you kind of need to fill in to get a nice smooth white. So those are the basics as far as the pre-treating aspect itself and what is used and not used. And basically, there are different types of garments also. A lot of times, like we sort of discussed earlier, heavier weight garments are going to require more pre-treatment. So a sweatshirt typically would require a little more pre-treatment than, say, a really nice, high-quality regular t-shirt. And basically, you can run into issues of over-applying the pre-treatment and also under-applying the pre-treatment. Too little pre-treatment will end up in a very poor white, and it may soak into the shirt, and it just is not going to be a good white print. Too much pre-treatment can, in some circumstances, cause poor adhesion of the white ink. So during wash, you may only get 1 or 2 washes and it may start cracking or peeling off of the shirt. Whereas the right amount of pre-treatment will just give you a perfect white, and it's not going to look faded as far as soaking into the shirt, and you're not going to necessarily see the pre-treating area as much. Over pre-treating can cause color discoloration. It can cause severe pre-treat box that you can see, and can cause a real stiff hand and feel to the pre-treated area that is not a very good presentation for your customers. So that's why we're highly recommend utilizing a pre-treatment machine of some type to apply the proper amount of pre-treat. And I think we can probably demonstrate one of the how to apply the pre-treatment and the general pre-treating process to give you a good idea of how this is done. And what we're going to do here is utilize a small entry-level mechanical pre-treatment machine. We'll heat press it, and then we'll go to the printer, load it up and print it. And while that's printing, basically we can talk a little bit more, maybe even start doing some questions and answers. So we'll grab our platen here for doing our pre-treating. We'll take a regular shirt, load this up, and we've preset our pre-treatment machine for to apply roughly about 20, on this shirt here, it's about 22 grams. And we're just gonna line it up and spray the shirt. Set that off to the side. Now, the shirt is still wet. So before you go to direct-to-garment, the actual printer itself, we need to heat set this. And we're going to utilize our heat press here. Now with the Image Armor products, I tend to like to use like a nice parchment paper for this. And I will typically do about 2 presses at about 330 degrees with firm pressure so that we get a good smooth surface and mat any of the fibers down. And I'm doing this for about 15 seconds at 330. Then I'll actually, if you can see, we're getting steam off of it. And I will let the steam out. And I'll flip the paper here, which folded up on me, didn't realize that. let the steam out, and repress it again. You want to make sure that your pre-treatment is completely dry prior to any directed garment printing. That helps the adhesion and the interaction of the pre-treatment between the actual ink set itself. So put that off to the side. Now we have our shirt, and we can actually take this and go over to the printer and no, there is not. We'll go over to our printer, load this up and print. So hopefully we're up and we can see here, and I'm taking the shirt that we just pre-treated, making sure it is completely smooth and flat. And we've already got our artwork loaded up, which you can see there. It's a nice chameleon. And we're going to load this up on our RI-1000 and hit print. And then we'll go back while this is printing, and we can actually maybe start doing some Q&As as this does its print. And we can actually flip back and forth on this as we let it print, and go from there. So again, one of the big things you want to make sure is you have the proper amount of pre-treatment and applied to the garment. Again, too little, the print is going to look weak and the ink is going to soak in. Too much, the shirt will be stiff. You can really see the box of where the pre-treat is. It may discolor the shirt. And it can also cause wash durability issues if you have too much. So in general, we get a lot of times asked, what's the proper amount of pre-treatment? And that is a very good question. And I can't give you a great answer because it will vary based on the quality of the shirt, the color of the shirt, and the weight of the shirt. And that's where utilizing a machine will work out really well for that, is you can get repeatable results. And that's why you want to utilize the pre-treatment machine. If you're trying to hand spray it, you can do that, but you do not have any idea of how much pre-treatment you're actually applying to the shirt. I've actually had people tell me, I can tell how much is being applied to the shirt just by looking at it. And I go, oh, really? You know, can you tell me, you know, is that 22 grams on that shirt for a 14 by 16 inch area? Oh yeah, I can tell by looking at it. I've done studies ourselves in our research department here, where depending on the finishing and how the manufacturer makes the shirts and the residual chemicals in the shirt, some shirts will absorb the pre-treatment really, really well, and it'll make it look not very wet. Others will let it sit up more on top of the shirt and look soaking wet. That is a problem because it's the same amount of pre-treatment, but two different shirts. So as you can see here, the design that we just loaded up is now coming out. The RI-1000 for that design printed pretty quick, and it looks pretty good. So I guess that being said, we can send it back to Henry and maybe go in with, start with Q&As or cover some other stuff that
Okay.
maybe didn't hit. I'm sure I probably did since I think that.
Yeah, so actually when you guys were doing the print, there were already a lot of questions that were coming in. So maybe we can tackle some of those, and we can also open it up to everyone that has any questions. But basically, there was one question from Jesse. Do you need to place the shirt in a heat press after applying the pre-treatment, or can you just load it into the printer?
No, you do need to dry the pre-treatment. The process is a wet ink on dry pre-treatment process, to make it simple. Think of it as like primary drywall. You need to let the paint on drywall first dry before you apply your color coat of paint, right? So it's the same thing with the shirts here for direct-to-garment printing. After it's sprayed, at least with our pre-treatments, we recommend that you do heat press it. That saves a lot of time. Can you let it air dry? Yes, but ours also needs to be heat activated, which is why we utilize the heat press. Typically, you can spray, go right to your heat press, dry the pre-treatment, go to the printer, and while it's printing that shirt, you can pre-treat another shirt, heat press that, and get into a good rhythm to keep your production up. Because as you saw, the print rate for that design right there was relatively fast. I didn't actually
Right.
time.
And that's a thing that I talk about a lot about on our YouTube series as well. Just getting into a flow of your production so that you are not having any downtime. So yeah, it's a great tip to have your t-shirt being printed and then go ahead and pre-treat your next shirt and have it cured. So you kind of get into that rhythm and then your machine is always working. So yeah, that's definitely a great tip.
Yeah, if you think about it, a lot of I've talked to a lot of people, and everybody has their own workflow. You're in this business to make money. Most people are, anyways. So when you're doing that, it's best to utilize any downtime that you have. So while the printer's printing, whether it takes 30 seconds or if it takes a minute or a minute and a half, you can be pre-treating and getting that workflow going. The more shirts you can get out per hour is the more money you can make, basically, which is the whole name of the game for what we're trying to do.
Of course. And a follow-up question from Jesse as well. He also asked, what should I do if I over pre-treat my garment? And that's something that we've seen with some clients as well. They don't really know how much to spray, and then maybe it's they oversprayed. So is that t-shirt ruined, or is there some way to salvage it?
Use it as a test print.
Okay.
I don't recommend washing it, trying to get it out. When you do that, you're creating all sorts of other extra problems. So that's why it's really important when you're first starting out. A lot of I guess the typical guidelines would be anywhere from 18 to 24 grams as for a 14 by 16 inch area. And you can typically get like a little gram scale. You can spray your shirt. And like with our little machine here, you can actually spray 14 inches, go 16 inches. And when you spray that, once you take your shirt, you weigh it, you tear it out so it weighs 0, spray it and then put the shirt back on. That will tell you how many grams that you've applied for that 14 by 16 area. Now, we actually did write an article on our website at Image Armor on how to calculate that out. Say it's a weird size, like a 9 by 13. You can multiply all that out and figure it out for the same equivalent amount. But once you know, most pre-treatment machines have a gauge, or for this setting, it should equal roughly about this number of grams. And that's a good starting point. And I recommend sort of keeping a journal, especially when you get started, so that you know, oh, this Gildan shirt worked best at 24 grams, where this next level was only 15 grams, or, whatever the combination is. For this black shirt, we had to do 24 grams, but the light gray, we only needed to do 17 grams, or you find that. And a lot of that does come from trial and error. And I tell people, when you're first starting out, plan on doing a lot of testing. Now, you can find a lot of good information out there, but there's also a lot of bad information. And what works in one person's shop may not work as well or at all in your own shop. And so that's why we sort of give that general 18 to 24 grams as a starting point. Typically, though, with the Image Armor products, it's kind of hard to over-apply the pre-treatment. And you would really it would be so soaking wet where it would start to cause wash durability issues with the inks. But we've sort of built that into the formula to make it what we call the application window is much bigger. So it gives a lot more leeway, especially for new people beginning to do direct-to-garment.
Okay, great. I think that that trial and error is definitely important because different fabrics, different weights, even from different manufacturers of these blanks, they might be a little bit different. So just taking notes and being able to refer back to it so that you can have some kind of repetition going and therefore knowing what's the best case to use for this type of garment. That's definitely super helpful. Some questions from YouTube from some of our viewers here. One question here that I thought was interesting. Let's see here. From Ultimate Gemini, someone asked, does it matter if you pre-treat days in advance? So can you kind of do a lot of pre-treatment in bulk and then just keep it in storage?
That is a very good question. The answer to that is yes. Some manufacturers, I joke about this. I joke that pre-treatment is like fish. It's always better fresh. But yes, you can pre-treat in advance and store it. The best thing to do is if you do that, you don't want to pre-treat your shirt and then be handling it and doing this and folding it and everything. You're disrupting the surface coating of the pre-treatment that you've put onto the shirt. You want to keep the fiber pop up to a minimum, so the less handling, the better. But yes, you can. You can pre-treat well in advance. You can do it 1 day in advance, 1 week in advance. To be honest with you, with our RTP shirts, we haven't found a shelf life yet, and we're pushing 6 years on those. But again, the longer it sits around, the more dust it can accumulate on the print surface, which then translates into issues with your actual printing itself. But in general, yes, if you're going to do that, keep it out of direct sunlight. Even the fluorescents, if you're going to pre-treat it, maybe have like a Tupperware tub type thing that you can lay them in, fold them up nice and gently, lay them in, and then put a lid on it. That just keeps dust and dirt off of it, as well as UV light, which from even LEDs can cause detrimental issues with pre-treatment. And something else that is a good tip too, it's sort of like when you buy underwear or any other piece of clothing from a retail store. Typically, most people wash that before wearing. Same thing you should tell your customers of definitely wash the shirts prior to wearing. It's just good practice.
Okay, great. A question from Unique Blackheart on YouTube, and I think our team has kind of answered it, but he basically asked, what's the cost of the Ricoh RI1000? And I think our team, Aliana has answered there that it starts at $235 a month with 0% financing. It's right around $17,000, with everything included. It's $16,950. And it has the heat press, the Wagner spray gun, the pre-treatment liquid, everything that we kind of discussed. You can kind of go on that link to submit an inquiry and talk to our team, and they'll be more than happy to kind of walk you through kind of what's the best option for you. Obviously, the Ricoh RI1000 or the RI2000. The RI2000, it really depends on your production volume. If you have a lot of volume and you're looking to print twice as fast, then the Ricoh RI2000 will probably be a good fit, given that it has two carriage systems so that it can print the white and the CMYK in one single run, in one single pass, rather than having two passes. So that kind of cuts your print time in half, especially when you're printing on darker garments. And by the way, I kind of mentioned and alluded to this at the beginning of this live stream, but basically we are going to have a promotion on the Ricoh RI1000 and 2000 packages that will end this Friday. And you do get 0% financing and free shipping. So that can save you upwards of like $800 on just the shipping alone for these packages. And we're also kind of announced at the end a promo code that you can use on our online store and purchase some pre-treatment liquid should you choose to. All right.
Can I make a comment here real quick?
Sure.
This is the first chance I've actually had to use your heat press. I actually love it. This is a really nice heat press, and this is one that comes in the kits.
Correct. For the, I believe the RI 2000, yes.
On it, very easy to use, and it's I'm almost half tempted to not send this one back to you, just to let you know.
Yes. We, a lot of customers have definitely found the slide out platen to be helpful, as well as the auto open. So and the touchscreen is very sleek.
Yeah, the touchscreen is beautiful, and I would recommend this any day over just the standard one. And here's why: when you're loading a shirt under a hot heat press, that and skin does not mix very well. And two, this makes it a lot easier for just getting everything smooth in that. And that's sort of another tip when you're loading your wet shirt up to actually be heat press the pre-treatment. Make sure there's no folds in the shirt. I actually had a little bit of one in this here. You get plinkles and everything. This just makes it a lot easier to get everything laid out smoothly, and then you can safely shove it in and put the heat down on it.
Correct. Okay. Let's see here. Some other questions from Facebook. So Al Welch asks, what's the time for curing the pre-treatment at a temp of 330 Fahrenheit? What's the time for curing the pre-treatment at a temperature of 330 Fahrenheit?
Basically, what we recommend we'll do 2 15-second presses. We'll press it, let it air out, because you can get trapped steam in there, which can cause problems on some shirts. But we'll typically do 2 15-second presses. Now, if you have to apply a lot more pre-treatment, say a heavier amount of pre-treatment, you may need to go slightly longer. So the general rule of thumb is press it until the pre-treated area is dry. You don't want to have it feel damp or wet at all. It does need to be dry before you go to your direct-to-garment printer. So in general,
and I guess I have a follow-up there. So is it better to kind of press it in shorter bursts rather than like a long 45 seconds or 30 seconds? It's kind of like press it for a short amount of time, see how it is, and if it needs more pressing, then press it again?
Yes, I actually do prefer doing, like I said before, letting that steam out. A lot of times, if you're not using parchment paper, say you're using a Teflon sheet, that can actually trap the moisture, and also it'll add shine to the pre-treated area. That's why I like the parchment paper. And the parchment allows it to breathe a little bit more. Can you go for one long press? Yes, typically, but sometimes from everything that I've messing around over the years, letting that steam out a little bit and then repressing it sort of speeds up the drying process. You can do it for 30, 35 seconds or 40 seconds in one shot. But again, that steam coming out, if it cools, it can collect on the edges of the shirt. And depending on the quality of the shirt and the dyes in the shirt, that can cause issues. So one of the other things too for some of the harder fabrics is you can actually just sort of hover the heat press over the surface to start warming up the pre-treatment prior to pressing. And on some of the more difficult fabrics, that can be a good way to increase the quality of the actual pre-treated area of the shirt.
Got it. Okay. Now we talked a lot about kind of pre-treating t-shirts. What about for thicker garments? Like if they want to print on a hoodie, would that need to be any different in the pre-treatment process or the curing process?
You'll typically require a little bit more pre-treatment just because it's a thicker, heavier garment and more absorbative in general. So it may require a little bit longer cure time. And again, if you're doing 15-second presses, when you peel off at the 30-second mark, you'll be able to see real quick and easily if there's any wet spots. because it will take a little bit long. And you could actually, on say a sweatshirt, go from 15 to 20 or 22 seconds or 25 seconds between those presses, because that extra fabric is going to absorb some of the heat, and then it'll get up to temperature to start curing the pre-treatment itself. So it will be a little bit longer, typically because of the weight of the fabric and because you'll typically need to apply a little bit more pre-treatment to the garment itself.
Okay. So another great question from Marvin Romero on YouTube. He asks, which lasts longer, heat transfer vinyl or direct to garment? And I already see a couple of responses down there that DTG for sure. And yeah, just to reiterate that, heat transfer vinyl, you're really laying another layer on top of your garment versus DTG. The ink is actually kind of infused more so into the fabric. So in terms of curing and kind of sticking to the fabric and sticking to the fibers, DTG is definitely going to last longer in the wash. Heat transfer vinyl, you might start to see cracking or fading after washes. But it is a different alternative. It is, it has more different types of applications. So that's why it's used. I don't really think it's meant to be a replacement of the other. It's meant to be complements of each other, right? You can think that heat transfer vinyl, you can use heat transfer vinyl on like mugs and plates or other hard surfaces that won't be doable with direct to garment, and so it offers a different variety, but also a very different feel. You're going to feel the vinyl on top of the substrate, on top of the surface, versus DTG. When you run your hand through it, if you do it the pre-treatment well and you do the curing well, it's going to last a long time and it's going to feel very smooth as if it's part of the fabric. Okay, another question from Tim Norvell from YouTube. I have heard that conveyor dryers work better than heat presses for curing. So true or false, I guess?
Well, thank you, Tim. That actually comes down to a personal preference. Let's take a look at the situation and scenario. A heat press is smaller, it's more compact, and it's less expensive, and it does do the job. A conveyor dryer is going to be larger, it's going to be much more expensive, and it's going to require a lot more room, as well as it's going to be more expensive to operate typically. So with that being said, both of them will work. The heat press will work and the conveyor dryer will work. When it comes to curing the pre-treatment, you're still going to, from everything that we've seen and found, it's still generally best to run the shirt through the dryer so it's still slightly damp and then finish off with the heat press. As far as curing the ink, you can do this, and when you heat press it, it is going to give a much smoother feel to the surface of the ink, whereas running it through a conveyor dryer, it's going to have a little bit more of a rougher feel because you have more of the fibers of the shirt and everything. You're not pressing it down, so it's not going to be nearly as smooth. Generally, depending on the inks that you're using, heat presses will, for the most part, be faster than a conveyor dryer. And that's just because you're directly contacting the heat directly onto the ink and surface of the shirt. Whereas with a conveyor dryer, you have to heat it up. You're not on top of it. You actually have a distance and you have to heat it up, and it will take a little bit longer. And it depends on the dryers. There's a lot of different dryers out there. I'm not sure if Ricoh carries any of them, but it will typically end up being anywhere from, close to 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes to upwards of 5 minutes, depending on the settings of your dryer. And you generally need a much, much bigger footprint space for the conveyor dryer. They both will work. They'll both do great jobs. Is one better than the other? Tomato, which do you like better?
Right. Yeah, definitely the footprint, especially if you're starting from home, heat press might seem more compact, right? You can just put on a desktop. versus
Yeah,
a conveyor
a lot of the
belt?
heat presses, we do have one in the back. I think the overall length of it is 5, 6 feet, and it's about the width of this table and a little bit wider. So it's, you know, it's going to take up a lot more. And if you're starting and working out of your bedroom or even a basement, now if you have a specific dedicated shop and you have the room, you could do the or the conveyor dryer, but you're always still going to want to have a heat press on hand. It's sort of like the Swiss Army knife.
Right, correct. Because you could use it more for more things than just the curing part. Okay, so someone also asked, can DTG print on leather and vinyl? And is the pretreatment going to be process going to be different for leather or vinyl?
Leather, you can pre-treat. It depends. If it's a treated silicone sealed leather, forget about it. That's going to be a major issue. If it's just raw leather, then you can get away doing that. Can you pre-treat it? Yes, because if it's untreated, that will receive the pre-treatment, and then you can actually print to it. As far as vinyl, we're dealing with a water-based ink in the printer, and vinyl is generally, these inks are not designed to work on those type of substrates. They're designed to work with organic, you know, cotton mixes and stuff like that. So in general, it's not a real, you're not going to use your DTG printer to print vinyl and also direct-to-garment shirts. You could, it's just not going to probably just smear right off.
Right. Okay. All right. We're coming up to the top of the hour, but we'll kind of, because I know we started a couple of minutes late, so let's see if there's any other questions here. And then we can also wrap up with some, making sure that you guys get the promo codes for the promotion. Let's see. Oh, this question from Daryl Jones from Facebook. Hello, Brian. Do you guys plan on selling pre-treated hoodies? That's a great question. I mean, we just talked about pre-treatment on hoodies, but any plans for RTP to sell pre-treated hoodies?
Yes. I have this sitting to the side. We just brought out our long sleeve shirts. So thank you, Daryl, for the question. We do have the long sleeve black shirts. As far as sweatshirts, the answer to that is literally 5 minutes before we came in here, I was talking with Dean about this. And I think we're going to put it, don't worry about it, it's fine. We actually do have sweatshirts. We need to do a poll because of the increasing in cost of shipping and importing. The cost of the sweatshirt is, everything's going up, and that's making it much more difficult in general. So we're trying to find quality of sweatshirts as to what the market will accept, because we can't do it for free, obviously. And but we do have sweatshirts, just like our long sleeve shirts, and that you can print anywhere on it. And actually, now might be a good question or time to ask, you know, would you use, you know, since we can sort of see real time, as a quick impromptu poll, you know, would you use a fully pre-treated sweatshirt so you can print the front, back, side sleeves, whatever, and also at what price point? If it was a middle of the road, not a cheap promo sweatshirt and not a super high-end sweatshirt, but a really nice middle of the road quality sweatshirt. So we're trying to figure that out. Are we planning on it? Yes, I've actually got samples in last week. We've been working on this for 2 years. We've got the process down. But now it comes down to, with increasing costs on containers, import duties and fees and that, we're trying to find if it's going to be economically viable for our customers. So if you can comment on YouTube or Zoom or whatever in the comment section, please, you know, let us know what what you think.
Yeah, I'm sure that if there's enough demand for it, then they'll definitely kind of push this project forward. But great question there, because t-shirts and hoodies are probably the two most common things that people do on DTG. Another question from Unique Blackheart. Last question: how often do you have to print in order for the lines not to clog? So we get this question quite a lot. In terms of DTG printers, as we all know, you kind of have to keep the white ink circulating in order for it to not clog and therefore damage your print heads. But it's actually for the Ricoh RN1000 or RN2000. It has this white ink circulation built into it every couple of hours. As long as your white ink is slotted in there, and you have to shake it, every day so that it doesn't kind of like bunch up and clog up. But if you do that and you have white ink slotted in there, the cartridge, and you have enough white ink levels inside the cartridge, and the machine is turned on and plugged in, it will circulate the white ink every couple of hours so that it can kind of keep the lines clean and keep it flowing. Now, if we always do recommend that if you get a DTG printer, you're at least printing every couple of days at a minimum to kind of make good use of it and not just kind of have the waste ink all the time. But if you are going on a long period of hiatus, whether you're going on vacation or something, and you don't want to leave your printer turned on, right? And we would recommend that you put a cleaning solution and flush out all the lines and put it in storage mode. There's a mode for these printers where you can put it in storage mode and be able to go on vacation for a week or two, and as long as you want, as long as the cleaning solution is in there, it will kind of keep the lines clean and circulate and be able to keep the heads unclogged, right? That's the most common kind of user error that we see. If you're not doing the proper maintenance, then your heads could get clogged, and that could be expensive to replace. So there's cleaning solutions and cleaning cartridges for you to do that, and put them in if you're going on a long break. But otherwise, the printer will kind of circulate the white ink every couple of hours to keep it to keep it fluid. And so you just need to make sure that your white ink is slotted in there and it has enough levels. But I would say every couple of days you should take advantage and actually do a print or a test print, but put it in storage mode if you're not going to be using it for an extended period of time. Okay.
Remember. I'm sorry, I was going to say, you have to remember, you're buying the direct garment printer to make money. So when it's sitting idle, it's not making you money.
Correct.
So the more you can print with it, the better.
Absolutely. Right. So one thing we always tell people is, you kind of have to see what your volume is. And before you kind of get into the business, make sure that you have a plan lined up to drum up that business, whether it be you're starting out in embroidery and now people want some printed shirts as well, and it can complement your existing business, or you're starting brand new. You have a plan to acquire those customers and therefore those orders and not keep your machines idle. Okay. Someone also asked, does Ricoh plan to sell any, pre-treatment machines other than the kind of sprayers that come with the printer packages? So yes, we are planning to, have some pre-treatment machines on our shop. So stay tuned for that. We're kind of in the process of finalizing that, and they will be unveiled soon. Let's see here. Someone asked, what if you have a print head get clogged? So yeah, if it's clogged, you can try to kind of unclog it with some swabs and maybe kind of trying to force some ink through the print head by doing some head cleaning. But if that doesn't work and it's fully clogged and it's unsalvageable, then really you have to replace the print head. That's why maintenance is, we emphasize a lot in our training process to make sure that you're doing the proper maintenance, whether that be on a daily or on a weekly basis, depending on what part of the machine to maintain, so that you avoid having it clogged. That's the most, common user error that we see. The machine actually reminds you that you need to actually, shake the white ink, or make sure that your white ink has enough ink level so that it can circulate. The machine is smart enough to kind of tell you some of those things, but at the end of the day, you also got to follow the instructions when they actually kind of prompt you to do so. All right. Let's see any other questions here. Maybe we take one more question. Yeah, so Brian, just so you know, Marcus Torres, if you know, for what it's worth, he said in the comments, I would totally purchase the hoodie. So just as some general polling from our comments, we can see that some people definitely have some desire for the pre-treated hoodies.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and Liza also said, yes, I would definitely purchase a pre-treated shirt, hoodie, and t-shirts. Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
and
let's
just
see
so
if
everybody knows, again, like we sort of talked about, pre-treating is not the fun part of the process. The necessary part, but it's not fun. The printing is the fun part. And I forgot to mention earlier that the RTP shirts are available at our website at shop.rtpapparel.com. We do have those. I know that we send out kits to you, Henry, that you guys include with your printers to help them get a good start off. That contains, I believe, a white and black shirt and some information on how to use them. So again, like I said, pre-treating is not fun. I manufacture this stuff. I don't even like to do it. I'd rather just grab one of our shirts and go straight to the printer because it saves a lot of time. So, but I'm also lazy.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's why the RTP shirts have been so popular, and people that have gotten them in the kits with our printers, they've been very impressed by those because, you know, yeah, like you said, the pre-treatment process for some people, it's a tedious process, but it's a necessary process. But some of them just want to, you know, pay a little bit extra and they have the shirts already pre-treated and they can just pop it in and print. So, you know, there's definitely a demand and a segment that will that's willing to pay for that, and that's why, you know, some people are saying in the comments, I would definitely pay for these pre-treated shirts and hoodies, and some might just want to go the DIY route and do it on their own.
Yeah, and you'll typically end up doing both anyways. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to end up having to do pre-treating yourself. You can use RTP, but like I said, there's so many different styles and colors and varieties of shirts that you're going to have to pre-treat. So you need to learn that, and don't overestimate how easy it is. Direct-to-garment printing is like it's an art. It's a technical art, I guess you could say. But learning the pre-treating process and getting that down and good makes learning how to print that much easier. So,
of course,
again, like I said, it's not fun, but it is essential for anybody looking to get into direct-to-garment printing. It is, I consider it the single most important process and technique to learn and do correctly, so that you can end up getting good prints and be able to sell them to your customers.
Yep. Awesome. Great. Last question that we'll take is from Facebook. How do you put it in storage mode? I always just put cleaning solution in, wet cap it, and shut it off. Yeah, so that's the part of putting it in storage mode. I think our service team would know the details of how to actually do that, but cleaning solution is definitely a part of it. Wet cap it so that the print head stays wet and not clogged, and then shut it off. And then having the cleaning solution in there will definitely help kind of keep the lines clear and not get any of those clogged up. So yeah, that's about it. I thank you to iGroup to kind of go over some of the pre-treatment methods and what are the best practices to get good prints. As Brian mentioned, pre-treatment is like a necessary process in the DTG process, just like digitizing is in embroidery, right? And a lot of times people kind of are getting bad quality stitch outs in embroidery because of poor digitizing, and I kind of compare that to the pre-treatment process in DTG. If you're not doing the groundwork and having a solid foundation for laying the ground for your t-shirts before it goes to print, then it could, fade, it could wash off very easily and just not give you a quality print. So it's meant to be there as a necessary part of it. And that's why we wanted to spend, this hour to kind of go over the best practices on that and hopefully answer a lot of your guys' questions that you guys had, which again, on Facebook and YouTube, you guys had a lot of great questions, and hopefully we were able to shed some light and insight into answering those. Now, with that said, I kind of wanted to wrap up this live stream with just mentioning that we do have our promotion going on for the RI1000 and RI2000 DTG printers. You see on the screen there that we do have the 0% financing for these printers for as low as $235 per month for 72 months, as well as free shipping, which can save you upwards of $800 per unit, because these are not small machines. And also these packages do come with a free heat press. Also, everything that you need to get started, including the pre-treatment liquids, some samples of the RTP shirts, as we mentioned before, in the kit. As well as the heat press, as I mentioned, to be able to cure your designs, cure your pre-treatment, and do everything that you need. It also comes with the training so that you are up to speed on how to do maintenance on your machine, which you kind of talked about in this live stream, and so obviously how to operate it, how to use the RIP software, and everything that you need to successfully make your first print by the end of that training. And you can also take the training over and over again if you want a refresher. We don't have a limit on how many trainings you can take, which is another great thing that we offer. Now, with that said, that promotion does end this Friday with the free shipping and everything that I mentioned, 0% financing. So do get in touch with our team if you're looking to get started with DTG, and hopefully we're kind of able to show you the process and give you some tips on the pre-treatment process. We also want to make sure that we mention about the special shop discount that we have. We do have the code SAVE10. If you go to shop.ricoma.com, our team will put the link in the description below. We also have 10% off on the any heat press, as well as the Image Armor pre-treatment liquid on our shop from now till Friday, using the code SAVE10. Okay, you also get free shipping on all the heat presses on top of having 10% off. And you get free shipping across all products if you order over $1,000 in your order. So that is also available on top of this SAVE10 code that you can use. All right, so make sure to use the code SAVE10, that's SAVE, the number 10. And you can use that. That's valid until Friday of this week. And you can get 10% off any heat press and pre-treatment liquid. So if you're looking to stock up and you already have a printer of ours and you're looking to stock up on some of the pre-treatment liquids, make sure to take advantage of that before Friday so you can get 10% off of that. And if you add in a heat press on there as well to scale your operations, you can probably get free shipping on not only the heat press but also on the pre-treatment liquid that you order. All right. Okay, great. I think that's it for us for today. Thank you so much to Brian and his team over there at iGroup Technologies for sharing their knowledge. I hope you guys were able to learn a lot in this presentation. I hope we try to keep it interactive and answer a lot of your questions. Most important of all, make sure to implement all of those tips and tricks into your operations and your workflow so that you can be efficient. And like Brian mentioned, we're all in this business to make money, and time is money. So the better you can get at this in pre-treating, in curing, in making sure your workflow is optimized, the more prints you can do per hour, and therefore more time out in the field and getting new business and taking care of customers, less time in the lab. That's always something that we mentioned. The less time you spend in the lab, the less time you're in production mode, the better it is for your business to scale in the long run. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you to Brian and his team over at iGroup for joining as well and sharing their knowledge, and hope to see you guys next time.